Subscribe for more real-life mysteries that will leave you speechless. When a convicted murderer was found dead inside his cell, everyone thought the case was closed. But the police weren't convinced. Something about his death felt too clean. So they made a chilling decision. They installed a hidden camera inside his coffin before the burial. Days later, the footage came in. At first, it was just darkness, silence. But then movement. Something was breathing inside that coffin. What the camera captured next made even the toughest officers in the room freeze in horror. Was it a hoax, a supernatural event, or proof that the man they buried was never dead to begin with? Keep watching, because what they saw that night changed the way prisons handle burials forever. Darkness had a sound that night, the slow hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant clang of metal doors, and the faint echoes of men breathing behind bars. It was past midnight at Blackridge Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison buried deep in the mountains of Montana. The kind of place no one escapes from, and where no one ever asks too many questions. Inside cell 39B, the guards found the body of Elias Crowe, a name that had haunted the local headlines for years. Convicted for the brutal killing of 2 police officers, Elias was labeled a monster, a man without remorse. Yet in the final months of his sentence, he started behaving differently. He stopped eating meat, stopped talking, stared at the ceiling for hours like he was listening to someone whispering his name. When the morning guard made his usual round, Elias was lying perfectly still on his bed, eyes closed, no pulse, no sign of struggle, just gone. Dr. Harold, the prison's medical officer, pronounced him dead at 3:14. The death report read sudden cardiac arrest. But not everyone believed it. The next day, Detective Laura Keene, a sharp but quiet investigator known for her obsession with unexplained cases, arrived at the prison. She had studied Elias for months, convinced there was more to him than the crimes on paper. He wasn't supposed to die, she told the warden. Not yet, not like this. The warden just sighed. He was a killer, detective. Maybe the devil finally came to collect. But Laura noticed something strange. Elias' body temperature was still higher than it should have been hours after death. His nails had grown longer than in his last mugshot taken just 2 weeks before. And then there was his face, peaceful, almost expectant, as if he knew something no one else did. When his coffin was prepared for burial, Laura made a request that shocked the entire facility. She asked to install a hidden surveillance camera inside the coffin. The warden laughed at first. You want to record a corpse? For what, a ghost story? But Laura wasn't joking. There's something off here. I want to know what happens after that coffin is sealed. She convinced the authorities to allow it under a confidential security monitoring clause. Only 3 people knew about it: Laura, the warden, and the IT technician who would monitor the feed. The camera was fitted into the coffin's interior lid, with night vision and sound capture. Once the coffin was sealed and buried at Stonehill Cemetery, the live feed began transmitting quietly to a secure server at the precinct. At first, the screen showed nothing but darkness. No movement, no sound. Hours passed, then days. Laura reviewed the footage every morning, mostly to prove her own paranoia wrong. But on the 3rd night at exactly 3:14 a.m., the same time Elias was declared dead, something moved. At first, it was a faint twitch in the corner of the frame. Then came a low, rasping breath, the kind of sound a person makes when they're waking up from a nightmare. The camera shook slightly, as if something inside the coffin had shifted. And then the sound of nails scraping against wood. Laura froze. She replayed it twice. The sound was unmistakable. The dead man's fingers were moving. The next frame made her stomach drop. Elias' face, pale and rigid, turned slightly toward the camera. His eyes opened. But what terrified her wasn't just that he was alive. It was the look in his eyes. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't gasping for air. He was smiling. The feed flickered, then cut to static. When Laura rushed to the server room, the technician monitoring the live feed looked pale as chalk. "It's gone," he whispered. "The data erased itself. I didn't touch anything." Laura immediately ordered the cemetery to exhume the coffin, but when they did, it was empty. No body, no trace. Only the camera remained, half melted, as if it had been exposed to intense heat. The footage was sent to forensics, but no one could explain how a hidden camera buried 6 feet underground could record thermal fluctuations, the kind that only happen when a living being emits body heat. Rumors spread like wildfire across the department. Some said Elias had faked his death with help from a guard. Others whispered about demonic possession, that Elias had made a deal long before his arrest, a deal that didn't end with death. Laura didn't believe in ghosts or demons, but she couldn't shake one detail that had haunted her since that night. When she first entered his cell after his death, there had been a message scratched into the wall above his bed. 3:14 isn't the end, it's when I wake. Weeks passed. The case was officially closed, marked as an unrecoverable anomaly. But late one evening, Laura got a call from the local morgue. A body had just been found dumped near the woods outside Blackridge. No ID, no wallet, but on the man's chest, burned into the skin, was a number, 39B. When Laura arrived, she nearly dropped to her knees. The body was Elias Crowe. But this time he looked different. His skin was gray, lifeless. Yet his eyes, they were open, fixed toward the sky, as if he had seen something beyond it. And in his right hand, he was holding a small, blackened piece of metal, the remains of the coffin camera. How did he get it out? No one could answer. The lab later discovered something even stranger. The metal casing of the camera contained fingerprints from 2 people, Elias and Laura Keene. But she had never touched the camera. When they reviewed the backup footage from the precinct, the timestamp from the moment the live feed cut out showed something chilling. A blurred reflection of a woman standing above Elias inside the coffin. Her face was obscured, but her badge number, barely visible in the light, read, Keene 4127. That was the night Laura stopped sleeping. In her dreams, she heard the sound of fingernails scraping wood. And every night at exactly 3:14 a.m., her laptop screen flickered on by itself, showing a black void, and the faint outline of a man smiling in the dark. Detective Laura Keene didn't tell anyone about the laptop screen that kept turning on at 3:14 a.m. Not her colleagues, not her superiors, not even the tech team that handled the encrypted video files. Because deep down she was afraid, not of what she'd find, but of what she already knew. Each night when the screen flickered to life, it played the same 2-second loop, the faint sound of breathing followed by a single frame of static. And then a whisper. Low, hoarse, almost human. Laura. At first, she thought it was a prank, but the IT forensics team later confirmed that no one could remotely access her system. It wasn't even connected to the internet at night. Something or someone was reaching out to her from that missing footage. The department, meanwhile, tried to move on. Elias Crowe's body was cremated under official order. No one wanted another scandal, no more ghost stories in the press. But Laura couldn't stop. She started digging into Elias' past again, deeper this time. She discovered that before his arrest, Elias had worked as a graveyard caretaker for over 10 years. And in that time, 6 other coffins had been found empty in nearby cemeteries. Each one belonged to an inmate who had died suddenly, in custody. Each time there were no witnesses, no explanations, just vanished bodies. Her instincts screamed there was a pattern. Someone had been conducting experiments, using prisoners, coffins, and something hidden beneath the surface of Blackridge Prison. Late one night, Laura returned to the prison alone. The warden refused her entry at first, but she flashed her badge with that look detectives get when they've stopped caring about consequences. She needed to see cell 39B again. The cell was still sealed since Elias' death. Dust coated the bed frame. The walls were cold and silent. But when she turned off her flashlight, something faint began to glow, a pattern of symbols scratched into the concrete, invisible under normal light. Her phone camera picked them up under infrared. Circles, lines, and one phrase repeated 3 times. Below, below, below. Her heart pounded. The floor under the bed was slightly loose, a hidden tile. She pried it open. Underneath lay a narrow shaft leading straight down into darkness. The descent. Armed with her flashlight and sidearm, Laura climbed down the shaft. The deeper she went, the colder it got, until the light hit something that froze her breath. Rows of metal boxes, identical in shape and size, coffins. At least 20 of them, stacked and connected with tubes and wires that pulsed faintly with a dim, reddish glow. Each one had a small viewing panel. Behind the first, she saw what looked like a human body submerged in black liquid, eyes closed, motionless, but alive. She recognized the face. It was one of the missing prisoners from a decade ago. The second coffin contained another. And another. Every single one alive, suspended in some unnatural state between death and consciousness. And then she found the last one, at the end of the corridor. The nameplate read, ECROWE. The glass was cracked. The coffin was empty. Her flashlight flickered. A whisper echoed behind her. Detective. She spun around, nothing. Then she saw movement in the reflection of the glass, a silhouette standing just behind her, too close. It was Elias. But his skin was gray, veins blackened like burned roots, eyes glowing faintly with that same red pulse as the tubes. You shouldn't have come here, he said softly, voice echoing like 2 tones at once. You saw what they did to me, what they'll do to you. Who? Laura demanded, her voice trembling. Elias stepped closer, inches away, his breath cold against her cheek. You already know, you were one of them. She froze. What are you talking about? He reached out and placed a hand on her chest, right above her badge. Her body shivered violently, and for a split second, a flash of memory burned through her mind. A dark room. A line of prisoners strapped to gurneys. Her own voice, calm and professional, saying, Subject 7, prepare for final stage reanimation. Climax. She stumbled back, gasping, No, that's not possible. But it was. Her personnel file, the one she'd always assumed was redacted because of classified assignments, was part of the Blackridge Project, a secret government program buried under the prison decades ago. Their goal? To test the limits of human revival, how far the body and mind could go beyond death. Elias hadn't been a victim, he was the final experiment. He had died and come back, but not as himself. Something else came back inside him. The project was shut down years before Laura ever joined the force, or so she was told. But what Elias revealed shattered that illusion. They wiped you, Laura, the others too. You weren't recruited, you were created. Her flashlight flickered again. One by one, the other coffins began to glow brighter. The prisoners inside them were waking up, their eyes opening in unison, all staring at her. Elias leaned in close and whispered, It's your turn to wake now. He pressed his hand to her chest again, and pain exploded through her body. She saw flashes, herself in a lab coat, standing beside Elias, watching monitors display brain activity of corpses that shouldn't be alive. Her voice giving orders. Her signature on the authorization documents. And then silence. When she woke, she was no longer in the underground chamber. She was in her apartment, lying in bed, drenched in sweat. Morning sunlight poured through the blinds. Had it all been a nightmare? Her phone buzzed, a message, no number. Just one sentence. Footage uploaded 3:14 tonight. She opened her laptop. The desktop wallpaper had changed, a still image of her, sleeping peacefully taken from above. That night at exactly 3:14 a.m., the feed began again. This time, the camera wasn't inside a coffin. It was pointing directly at her bed. She watched in horror as the live footage showed her current self sitting upright, eyes wide open, staring straight into the camera. The on-screen version of her slowly raised a hand and whispered, "Below, below, below." The screen went black. Then a final frame appeared, Elias' voice whispering, "She's awake now." Morning broke gray and heavy over the city, but for Detective Laura Keene, time no longer felt real. She sat at her desk, staring at the footage on her laptop, frozen on that final, impossible frame, her own reflection whispering from the other side of the screen. She hadn't slept. Her apartment smelled of cold coffee and fear. The clock read 3:13 a.m. 1 minute to the time the feed always began. Her fingers hovered over the power button. Part of her wanted to shut it all down, erase everything, pretend it was just a cruel hallucination. But the other part needed to know. At 3:14, the screen flickered to life. Static. Then darkness. Then movement. It wasn't her apartment this time. The feed showed a small, sterile room, metallic walls, humming lights, and a glass chamber in the center. A figure lay inside, motionless. Laura leaned closer, her heart skipped. It was her. Her body, hooked to wires, sensors, and a breathing tube. The timestamp on the footage was from 10 years ago. Her phone buzzed. A message appeared from an unknown number. "Come home, Laura." An address followed: Blackridge Facility, Sublevel 5. She drove there through a rainstorm that seemed to fall just for her. The prison had been shut down after the incident with Elias. The gates were rusted, the power long gone. Yet as she approached the main entrance, the security lights flickered on, one by one, leading her down the same hallway she'd walked weeks before. Every door she passed unlocked automatically. Every camera followed her. And then she reached the elevator at the end of the corridor, the one labeled Restricted, Level 5, Revival Lab. She pressed the button. It worked. The elevator doors opened into a room straight out of her nightmares. Clean, clinical, and humming with machines that shouldn't still be running. Rows of monitoring pods lined the walls, each showing heart rates, brain scans, and live video feeds of people buried underground. The same footage from the Coffin cameras. Every screen had a name attached to it, names of prisoners long declared dead. And then she saw her own name on the last monitor. Keene Elias status, RENIMATD. Her breath caught. No. Footsteps echoed behind her. She turned. It was Elias Crowe. Alive, breathing, smiling that same knowing smile. "You finally came back," he said softly. "You're not supposed to remember this part." "What did you do to me?" she demanded. He stepped closer, placing a small device on the table, a black, scorched camera. "The coffin was never about death," he said. "It was about control, about seeing what comes back after we die." He pointed toward her reflection on the monitor. "You died in that lab, Laura, 10 years ago. You volunteered for the experiment after your daughter was killed. You wanted to prove there was something after death, a way to bring her back." Her head spun. "You're lying." "Then why," he whispered, "can't you remember the color of her eyes?" Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Because he was right. She couldn't. Every detail of her daughter's face was gone, like someone had erased it from her memory. Elias continued, "When they brought you back, you weren't the same. None of us were. You started seeing things, hearing voices from the dark. The project shut down because the resurrected didn't stay human for long." He leaned closer, eyes burning with something ancient. "They thought they buried us, but they only buried what we were." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small vial filled with a glowing red fluid. "The serum they used, it binds the soul to the body after death, keeps it awake, but the soul doesn't like being trapped." The lights above them began to flicker violently. The monitors beeped faster. On the screens, the other subjects, the buried prisoners, started to move. One by one, their eyes snapped open, staring directly into the camera feeds. Elias whispered, "They're all waking up." Laura backed away, but the sound of alarms filled the room. The pods burst open one by one, releasing cold vapor and screams that didn't sound human. Elias turned toward her. "You wanted to see what happens after death, Detective." He reached out his hand. "Now you will." Before she could react, the glass under her feet cracked, and she plunged through, landing in freezing black water. She struggled upward, gasping, clawing for air, until she realized she wasn't in water at all. She was in one of the coffin chambers. A lid slammed shut above her. Darkness swallowed everything. Her lungs burned. Her heart pounded. Then silence. Epilogue. 3 days later, a construction crew arrived at the abandoned Blackridge facility to begin demolition. In the rubble they found no bodies, no computers, no machines. Just a single working security feed, looping on a cracked monitor. The footage showed a coffin buried underground. Inside it, a woman lay perfectly still, eyes open, faintly breathing. Detective Laura Keene. And every night at exactly 3:14 a.m., she looked directly into the camera and smiled. The feed has never been disconnected. Authorities refuse to speak about the case. But online, whispers spread of a dark website where that coffin footage appears once every month. Each time it shows something new, the woman moving closer to the camera, her lips forming silent words no one can hear. Until one day the audio returned, a voice saying, "Below, below, below." Then the feed went dark, and the IP address traced back to Detective Laura Keene's old laptop. Skull the end.